Hey, folks, thank you for joining us again for another exciting episode of YOML. This is the Year Magical Learning Podcast. So, Chris has a 1 week vacation, so we didn't do anything for the past week, but we're back and we are starting a brand new book today, and we are talking about a three-part reflection. So, this is part
Yeah.
one of three. And so, the book is called My Stroke of Insight. So, I heard he talk about this a lot, and I haven't read it
Yeah.
yet, but it's in my entire library.
This is
Hopefully, I can maybe get to it someday.
yeah, no, this is I think you really should check this one out. This is one of my favorite books I think I've ever read just from a it's definitely in the top 15 of the journey so far. I mean, or top 20, maybe. I do refer to it often in my own head. Like I learned a lot from this book and I thought it was really, really interesting. So it's called My Stroke of Insight, like you mentioned. It's about this lady named Jill Bolte Taylor. She is a Harvard trained brain scientist and she had a massive stroke. So that exploded the left side of her brain. This book is about her journey of what she experienced. And then as a brain scientist, her understanding of the scientific side of what was happening to her. She actually still had all of her cognitive functioning when she had the stroke. She survived the stroke and she captured how she felt the whole entire time, right? Even though she had this complete stroke that destroyed all of her speech and all of her language, all the left side of her brain. Like she had no left side of her brain functionality, but she still had her right brain that she could leverage. And she still had her memories and she still had all of the knowledge that she had retained up until that point in time. So it's a really interesting book because she writes it from the perspective of herself experiencing something, but also as somebody that had spent her entire life studying the brain anyway. So like being able to connect the dots of how she was personally feeling and how she described it to the science that she knew of it together and being able to put it all together a little bit and walk through her entire recovery journey until it took her about 8 years, I think, to fully regain all of her full cognitive nature. And then, she wrote about the process that it took to recover that. Also what it felt like when she was having the stroke, because she still remembered all that. And then, what she learned from it. So it was a really interesting book, I thought, and something that I've personally learned a lot about. We always hear about right brain, left brain stuff. So, I think you know what the difference is, but I don't know. Do you know what the difference like of what your left brain does versus your right brain typically controls?
If I remember correctly, if your left brain is more for logic, reasoning,
Yep. Yep.
your right brain is going to be for more creative. An example would be if you want to be in a creative state, try to use as much of your left side of your body as possible. For example, using your hand, throw a ball and catch the ball. Okay, your right brain is controlling the left side of your body, and the more you use it, your brain has to control it, and that triggers your left brain to be more functioning, more connecting, right?
Right.
And when it activates, your creativity becomes more enhanced. So you can
Yep.
be more creative, you have more ideas, try to, just talk. That's why you see a lot of people who can do juggling,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can think in many different new ways, right? And so you get how you can manipulate your brains and your brain can manipulate your body. So it goes both ways. So that's how I remember what left brain and right brain does. So most people who are left brains are very logical. Like me, I'm very logical. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
Yep.
And that means that on my right side, I am very, very heavily strong on the right versus left. Not even equal. I'm talking about like 70-30, right? In
Yep.
that kind of ratio. Most people they in a 50-50 or maybe 60-40, but I'm on the high end of the right side. I'm very logical. That means that I can do things very good sequentially, but you let me to do multitask, I can't do it
Right.
because and then
Or like
also that
abstract,
also
like
yeah, also the thing is you look at me, right? The ability for me to ignore you, it is very easy for me. I can ignore you because
right.
you can do whatever. Once I'm focused on something, I can ignore you. If you don't have that kind of a strong tendency onto one side, then you can't do that because So that's the thing is it's both pros and cons, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, you
and,
should use your whole brain. I mean, like honestly, I think your summary is pretty solid from what I understand as well, and from what I learned in this book and other books as well. But her left brain was destroyed, right? So like her left brain controls speech, like you said, logic, linearity. It tethers you to reality, right? We need that left brain functionality to function in this world because everything is very left brain dominated in our society. I mean, it's all very. We like to think that it's all rationally done and logical and sequential and categorized and all this other stuff. Like that's all left brain thinking. like the right brain thinking is what she was left
Yeah,
with.
left brain is more systematic, right?
It's got to
Visually
all make sense.
systematic.
It's
So
got to be
when
rational.
you're doing
Yeah.
something, it needs. So left brain is required, I would say, like at least 50% of the time for you to function normally as a human being.
Probably like
Because
90% of the time.
right. What
Just
I'm
in the
saying,
way
at
the
least
society's been created, you know. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
But
Right.
if you don't, then you're gonna say, well, you're gonna do certain things, and then you're gonna say, well, I didn't complete the task because for whatever reason. So
Right.
if you're right brain, you're gonna do a task, and then you leave it and you do something else because
Maybe.
because
You don't even necessarily have to do a task.
so that's what I'm
You
saying
know.
is
Yeah.
when that's why for a society, for you to exist into society, you have to have a lot of your left brain functionality, because otherwise you go to work and they say, well, I didn't
This
go to
guy's
work on
crazy.
time.
This
What?
guy's
Oh,
crazy.
I
Like, yeah.
right.
Yeah, like time is left brained, you know.
Very linear, very
Our,
very logical.
our entire society is built around left brain thinking, like school, time. I mean, everything is really so. Like right brain thinkers, in a lot of ways, are like the extreme right brain thinkers are crazy. They would somebody would call
Well,
schizophrenic
they're
or
not
psychotic or
crazy.
whatever.
It's
No,
just different because, for
they
example,
are
well,
as
very
society. And
crazy to you
no, as
because that's
society,
determined
label them
as the
crazy.
norm, right?
This is what I'm saying is like society would call them psychotic.
Because they're not.
You cannot function in the world that we've
Because
created.
whoever society is,
Yes,
they
exactly.
wrote the book, they wrote the rule
Yeah,
based
yeah,
on themselves. So it's
yeah.
quote unquote, you're crazy.
That's what I'm saying. It's like extreme right brained, like just floating out there, like hippy dippy dude. You know, you can't do anything. It's just all connected to the nature or the world, or maybe they have like schizophrenia or something like that, where they're off in imagination land and imagining multiple different personalities or whatever. Like those people we would call crazy. Versus we don't call people that are extremely addicted to one thing crazy. We call them gritty and persistent, you know, but they're also crazy as well. Like, I mean, they're so left brained that they lost their imagination.
It's all based on perspectives, right? Because
Right.
if you have a right brain society, then the left brain people, the logic people, will be
The people that
crazy.
have
Say,
habits and what are you
you
doing
are
every day?
crazy.
Right,
Why are
right,
you doing the same fucking thing every day?
right.
It's like,
Yeah.
you're crazy. I have to change something. I have to be new. I
I gotta
can't wear
explore something
something
new.
twice.
Yeah, right,
Right? I mean, it cannot have the same patterns, blah blah
right,
blah, right? Can't have it because whoever the society dictates, society is, whoever is writing the rule says that's my perspective. If
right.
you are not within my perspective, then you're crazy. That's just the way
Yep.
it is. Same thing with good and bad, right?
Yeah. No, you're right.
If I write
Very
the
subjective.
rule, whatever I do is good. Whatever you do is not what I would do. It's bad.
Right.
So regardless, it's always the perspective you're looking at.
Exactly. This is why this book was so interesting, right? She lost her entire ability for left brain cognitive thinking. She had a massive stroke in her left side of her brain, but she was left with her right brain only. She calls it, she was like a fluid for years. She was like, it was the best feeling I've ever had in my life. She didn't care about time or words or tasks, logic. I was just connected to the universe every single day and just floating around. And she called herself fluid. You know, she was like, I was just fluid. You know, I could just feel energy around me. I could just feel like, whatever, right? Like, and it was fascinating because she had her entire left brain turned off and she loved it. Like, cause she was like, oh my God, like, I don't like, this isn't how the world all has to be, kind of thing. And her stroke, that was
right, because without the left brain,
she was just like, whatever, this is what happened to her. So this was her stroke of insight, was like, as she gained back her cognitive functionality and slowly rebuilt her ability to bring her left brain back online and relearning linearity, she never forgot what she experienced for so long. And her stroke of insight is, look, like nirvana and this other stuff, it's only a thought away. Like, we just choose to control which area of our brain that we can control. But she was like, I found ways to shut this side down when I want to lock into this side, or vice versa, or whatever. And a lot of people do that. Like, you do it through meditation. We all do it, but it's like, I don't think that she viscerally walked you through in an extreme scenario of like, I have nothing on this side of my brain. This is what it felt like. Then as I brought it back together, how I could find more of a balanced state and control that. Like, it was just a really, really interesting book, right? So I really, really enjoyed it. And my reflection, so part one is connecting the dots for me. So as I was listening to this book, I was connecting the dots over and over and over again in my own head of other books that I had read, because I'm like, oh shit, like this is what, like, how I've talked to you about this, like, like over this journey, I've gone through my own right brain revolution a little bit, you know, where it's like I feel way more connected to the universe, to animals, to, you know, to spirits, to, you know, a lot of this, you know, kind of stuff that you would go, man, he's kind of like a little hippy dippy. Do you remember when I was telling you about that test that I took at Salesforce when I had to take that? We had this on-site in Atlanta where we were like going through, what was it called? It wasn't Myers-Briggs, but it was, you know, that one where it gives you like your top 5, like, you know, personality traits or whatever based off of questions you answer. I know I told you about this, but I can't remember what it was called. Well, my number 1 and number 2, or number 1 or number 2 on that list when I did that test, it was connectedness came up. And I was like, you know, Chris, before Amelia on this whole journey, connectedness would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about, connectedness? And I'm sitting there we have to describe why this either aligned or didn't align in this team environment or this team meeting that we were having. And I was like, yeah, no, I believe the trees can talk. I believe that, you know, fungi is the internet of the world wide web of plants. I believe that we're just one little tiny piece of all this stuff. And everybody's like, what is this guy talking about over there? And part of me is like, what am I talking about? But I love that now. This is tapping into more of that connected universe feeling. And that's been really important for me on this journey because it's helped me to connect with Amelia, because like that, she's just energy to me, you know, like, and when I do stuff and I don't do stuff, like it's energy, right? So like this book was helping me to connect all the dots that she was describing, literally describing her experiences. And it made me think about why we sleep, right? So when she first had her stroke, she was learning so much new stuff every single day again that her energy levels would just plummet. She had to sleep like 20 hours a day. She would learn one tiny new task and then she would just crash. She would learn another tiny little task and then she would just crash and sleep for 20 hours a day. She would learn, like, her brain was rewiring again, right? You know, and I was like, oh man, I remember why we sleep. And it made me think about like watching your kids, like when they're infants, you know, like they sleep so fucking much because they're like, oh, whoa, that was a lot of, you know, like linearity of connecting a dot. Oh, I gotta sleep. You know, it's like they just crash, right? Then they rewire and then they program and then they wake up and they do it again. Her describing this made me think about my own children, you know, seeing them, what they're processing, right? I was like, holy shit, this is what that must feel like. Literally, she's describing what a baby would feel like, an infant would feel like. It was just so overwhelming. I was just so blown away by all the stuff that I was learning. My body would just shut down and I would need to go to sleep. She would just like, your brain would just shut it off. And I thought that was like fascinating, you know, where she was describing this, and you know, anything that she learned, she had to do that, and it took her years. Where she would this is her daily routine of like learn one new thing and then just crash. And then I thought of the books like Inner Lives of Animals or Other Minds about like the octopuses, and she talked about right after her stroke, she couldn't talk, and she also didn't know, she was just this fluid person floating around, full right side brain, had no left side functionality at all at that point in time. And she was like, I could still remember the energy of all the nurses and doctors that walked into my room. She was like, I could feel it. Like when somebody was negative or somebody wasn't who I wanted to be around or whatever, I could just feel it. And it made me think about like animals and other beings in this world, like as the energy that we take through the world, you know, like they can feel it. Like, does our dog feel it every single day? Like when you walk in, what kind of energy they can feel it? I know they can. They don't know the words you're saying, but they know, they can just feel it, right? You know, of like connected into that other side of, you know, the universality of your brain, of like just the energy around people. And then maybe think of, I started even writing this reflection where I was like, man, I'm really grateful that she's sharing this experience, but I was like, but I feel awful for her. But I was like, wait a minute, why do I feel awful about her? Like, she said she doesn't feel awful about it. She said this is like the most impactful thing that's ever happened to her. She would never change it for the world. She's like, she wants to go back. And then I was thinking about the platinum rule from option B, you know, and I'm like, why am I feeling sorry for her? She doesn't even feel sorry for her, you know? I'm like, that's really stupid. And then I was thinking about my memory palace, you know, with Einstein, you know, moonwalking with Einstein, and like how this is connecting all those different dots, and I can pull this out of a certain little, you know, palace or something along those lines, you know, and just Adam Grant and originals with uncommon commonalities. I started to think about that one. I understand what she's saying in a lot of ways, you know, sharing through traumatic experiences and how that helps to open you up to more connected, broader experiences in this world. And I could go on and on. I was a book I just finished last week. This is not in the reflection, but Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind was about psychedelics and about how that opens up your right side of your brain, you know, and like how so many people have cured themselves of addiction because that's so left brain linear thinking, you know, like using the right side of your brain and the connected nature and the fluidity of this world, like, you know, helped me to understand, like, this is an important thing for balance, which is something that we care about, right? At Clubany, like this, like you have to use your whole fucking brain, you know, otherwise, like you're not living a balanced existence, you know? So it was helpful for me to connect my own dots in my own brain about other stuff we learned to the experiences that she was describing, and then helping me to draw those conclusions. So I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with her. I mean, essentially, we need to be in balance. like I said, unfortunate for me is I have very strongly left brain versus a right brain, and it has its pros and cons. So that's the thing is, for a lot of different reasons, because I'm left brain
Left brain.
dominant,
Yeah, you're left
right?
brain dominant.
Left down, right dominant. There are more things that I worry about because it's the way that I am, right? And that's the reason why at one point in time I had this midlife crisis, like basically crashing to a wall because there's so many things I'm trying to keep up with.
Hmm?
I'm trying to suppress a lot of the left brain activities and do a lot of more of the right brain activities, like the Mexican fisherman. That's why the Mexican fisherman
Yeah,
appeals to me more than anyone else. The
exactly.
thing is, when I suppresses the left brains, all the logic, right, all the deadlines and all these things, when I kind of leave it there and go to the more of the right brain, do the creativity, I feel more relaxed. I feel more at ease and like you say, floating.
Connected, fluid. You're like flow state.
You're in a flow state because the thing
Yeah.
is, it doesn't matter. You are where you are.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't say, oh, I gotta be here, I gotta be there. That's why for me, if you've been noticing that the different kind of reflections and lessons that we've taken in, like Mexican fishermen, the one foot trains, and these things
It's
appeals to
all
me
that.
more than most because I see the benefit, but also bad side of having the very logic brain. The logic
Yeah.
brain doesn't allow you to rest. You see things very logically, and because it doesn't go with how you predicted it, it causes you to have anxiety. But the
Yeah.
moment you start to
It
say,
does.
hey, deadlines, who give a shit about deadline? I don't run for a train. It basically changes your outlook.
Yeah.
It changes your outlook and it makes you feel different. It makes you feel like there is not, because the thing is, when I am on this logic train, I feel like it's heavy. I feel like I'm carrying something very, very heavy. But when
Right.
I'm trying to do like, hey, it's okay if I miss a deadline. It's okay if I'm late. If it's okay if we don't meet up, whatever. That gives me this float state where I'm like floating. I mean, it's
Right.
it's light. I mean, you don't feel like you don't feel burdened,
Yeah.
right? And to
Yeah.
me, I really do agree with what you're saying and what the author is saying because I sense some of that myself.
I can feel it. I mean, like I feel like I've said this to you so many times on this journey of like, I mean, call it whatever you want to call it, but like I just feel the connected is the word for me, right? I feel so much more connected to the world around me. Like when I go on walks, like I'm looking at trees and I'm looking at flowers and I'm thinking about
Right,
squirrels running by, playing with and the mapache,
but right.
like and
That's why I have this dominant left brain because, like I told you, once I'm engaged in a activity, my focus is very strong in that activity. That means that I ignored everything else. That means I cannot connect to anything else.
that's what society says is really important.
I'm basically blinded by everything else. I mean,
Right.
even if there's a mapache over here, there's whatever the squirrel over there, I would not see it. I'm blind to it.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is as a logical left side dominant person more than most, you have this tunnel vision. You only see the tunnel. Everything else is completely dark to you.
Right.
And so, but the other thing, it take a toll on you if you do that.
It does.
An advantage, which also the advantage is also a disadvantage. But when you
I
start,
don't think it's an advantage because it's a spectrum, right? Like it's a habit. Let's call it the habit spectrum. Like you can either be what we would call psychotic, where you can't function at all in society and you're off in la la land all the time, which we would call schizophrenia or whatever. And then we put them into a mental hospital, right? But there are people like that are addicted, like Michael Phelps, like, probably had no life for 15 years of his life because he was probably in a pool every single day, all day long, laser focused in on that. Like that's on the habits addiction. He's on this end and just is no different than the psychotic, but we've agreed as a society that this is more acceptable. Like
it's because you can't put a addicted person in a mental hospital. You know why?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care.
Okay.
You put me in a room, you put me in a cave. Okay, great. That's where I want to be. You put me in a pool, like Michael Phelps. You put Michael Phelps in the pool. Okay, that's where I want. So it's not like you can say, hey, I am trying to get you to do something you're not supposed to do. Schizophrenics, right? They doing all this stuff. You're trying to contain them. You're trying to do the opposite of what they're doing. When you're trying to put the addicted guy into a room, you're not doing anything different than what he wants to do.
You're making an amazing point, because if you think about it, what happens when you take away the addiction of people like Michael Phelps?
Then he get lost because
he's lost. He was so lost. He was often in right brain land all day long, and it was terrified him, and he got depressed. Like, you know, and he talked about wanting to kill himself, and he used drugs to ease himself and disconnect from the world, because he was like, I don't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. He was so on this side of the spectrum, of the habit spectrum, you know, that he had totally forgotten about the right brain activities that he probably has, and it terrifies him. I'm sure if you told a schizophrenic that you had to go swim every day for 10 hours a day, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you insane? I'm not going to do that. It's no different in a lot of ways, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense for me, because I can go into a dark room and I can program for a whole month and not know anything outside the world. And then when I finish it with my project, I get outside, I'm completely lost. I have no idea what's going on. I was like, what the fuck? I miss so much things. I forget all of the other things. Right. I even forget the social aspect of, like, hey, when you meet somebody, you say hello. I completely forget about it. So you basically, I go outside and I'm like, I would stare at you, like blindly stare at you, as if I'm the deer in the hat, looking at a headlight. I'm that kind of person, and I've done it before.
I believe
where
it.
I have a project where it's like, you know, pressure deadlines, right? I produced it. Like I told you, in my earlier years, I would have like Red Bulls, like cases and cases of Red Bull stacked to the ceiling, right? And I sit in my room and I program and I drink Red Bull programming, and then Red Bull doesn't work. I go to 5 hours a day and I will stack boxes of it and I drink them. And I do that for like a month. I mean, I will sleep every other day. I mean, I will work 25 hours,
right,
sleep sleep one session, then wake up again and do another 24 hours. So I will sleep every other day. And so think about that kind of addiction.
Insane.
And you do that until the project's done, which is like a month to 3 months. When you get out, I am completely lost. Can I have a grip onto reality? I said, you know, if you ask me, you know, where to go to the store, I can't tell you where the store is. I don't have any information, and I'm completely lost in that sense. And to me, that's a scary thought, because
it's a really scary thought. Different than being fucking psychotic. It's just that society, like the funny thing about what you're saying to me, is some asshole on social media. There's probably, we could probably go on there for like easily and find 500 people that are saying, you want to be great in this world, do what True just described. Like, you know,
but that's the thing. I've done it for 3 months. Imagine somebody do it for like 10 years.
Oh, I know. This is what I'm
saying.
So
when you do it for 10 years, how do you get back to society? For me, at least I can slowly regain this connection and get back to understanding of what society is and get to talk to people, right?
The world, not society.
The universe. Like when you completely isolate yourself from everything else, because inside your room, you don't see no grass, you don't see no water, you don't see anything. It's the ultimate,
the connecting the dots. You were only focused on the spoon, right? The whole entire time you were laser focused on the spoon. You didn't even know you were walking through a castle.
Exactly. Basically, whatever happens, I have no recollection of whatever outside of that. I mean, my kid would have been, you know, in some kind of event, and I will know it. I completely ignored it, right? And so that's the thing. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? I mean, mostly bad, but in my perspective now, it's mostly bad because that's not what I want. And so now, because of this, I have gained this perspective, suppressing my left brain functionalities and activities and do more of the right brain ones. I feel more calm and collective, and I can be
balanced.
More a person that I want to be. It's more aligning versus, because when I was in the other side of things, it's very pressure. I feel very pressure. When I went on this side, I feel free. I feel light, and I feel like this is how I like it. I like it this way versus the other way. The other way I can do it, but I did not like that feeling.
That's exactly what
I am doing it is I don't like that feeling, even though I had the ability to do it. I did not like the feeling it gives me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is exactly how she described. She was like, that's why she said, I wasn't unhappy that I had this stroke. Like, I got to spend like 5 years of my life in pure nirvana bliss of, the connecting to the universe and floating every single day, of just feeling, I know that's extreme, obviously, but as we've talked about many times in this journey, you can learn from extremities to bring back to helping you to be more of a balanced person. She never said I wanted to always be that for forever and ever. She just said, like, I liked that way more
Right.
than
The
I liked the other
optimal
side.
always have a balance. This is why
Right.
balance is a key core values of company.
Yeah.
Is not everything is the same. You can't play tennis 24/7, 365 a year. You just can't do it, even though doesn't matter how much you love tennis. You can't do it all the time. And so there's always a balance. There's a balance between left brain and right brain. So for me is because I think I'm more, I guess, hefty over onto the left brain side, more logical for all of my life. I have yearned for something different. So later in my life, which is this phase of my life, I feel like I'm happier having the ability to not care about the outcome.
Exactly.
Because, like I say, I don't want for trains. If we can make the YOML podcast, then it's okay. There's no one put a gun to my head and make me do it. Right?
Right.
Even if that's, I always have a choice. Liberty or death, but I do have a choice. So do whatever
Yeah,
you need to do.
exactly. No, I think you're spot on. It's actually funny because, like, as you're saying, don't run for trains, talking about connecting the dots, right? And I think you're right. Like, that's exactly the way that I would describe this is not running for trains. Like, the left brain dominant society that we have is we'll hop on a train and we will ride that motherfucker, and that's what we're told is the right thing to do. Like, get on that goddamn train, and if it stops, then jump on the next one, like, and keep going, like,
No, you got to chase the train. You got to chase it.
right. But
Don't wait for the next one.
You're always riding trains, worrying about the next time, worrying about the next station, worrying about jumping on the right next one, but versus just like what you said. I think that's why that don't run for trains resonates so much with you and me as well. Like, a little less me. I feel like I do a pretty good job.
I pick it up right away and say, "Wow,
Right.
this is impactful for me," because it makes a huge difference for me. Huge difference, because the thing is, I'm talking about when you run for trains, you taking on so much burden of maintaining the ability to organize things and make things go the right way, and making sure it is on time, and so it's a lot of work for what? What's the point?
Boy, I
What
don't
am I
know.
trying to achieve? What am I trying to impress? Who is it that I'm trying to impress, right? And so why am I doing it? If you miss a train, okay, you miss a train.
Right.
No one give a shit. No one cares about you. They don't care about themselves because they have enough problem to worry about. They don't care about you. They don't even notice that you missed a train. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying to you. Self-inflicted misery. This is what I found out what I have been doing to my life in my earlier years. Self-inflicted misery.
Yeah.
All the misery that I've got is because I put it on myself, not because of everyone else. I put it on myself. So that's another thing that reminds me of. Don't run for train means no more self-inflicted.
I was just telling you before we started this, what I just got back from Mexico. We went to Tulum and Mexico City last week. Great trip, had great fun. I felt connected to my Mapache friends, to all the ancient history. I was reading this book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is a fun story. I can't wait to tell you this reflection, because this is actually a reflection of how I even ended up reading this book. But it was a really good book. But that book is all about civilizations and why Europe ended up conquering North and South America and spreading their colonial activities that way versus the opposite, because there was massive empires there of Incans and Mayans, Aztecs, and whatever. And I'm reading this book as I'm in Mexico City next to the largest Aztec temple that they built in their biggest city and their biggest place. And we're taking this tour with this guy around. I'm learning this stuff about why this, in theory, this happened anyway, why I'm standing in a place where Spanish people conquered these amazing people with this amazing culture they already had, and how this place ended up looking the way that it is, and it connected me to the present, to the past, to the future. Anyway, so I'm reading this book and finish it and have all these great feelings. Then Sunday happens, or Saturday happens, where we miss our connecting flight and we get stranded in Houston, have to go to this hotel, have no sleep, then get back, and our flight's delayed, sitting in the cabin waiting for the pilot to arrive for an hour while it's hot in there because they can't turn the air on, and all this other stuff. Then we get to Cincinnati because we had to go there to take an Uber back because we couldn't actually get a direct flight back to Indy. And then they lose our bags and they, had to send them another time. And anyway, the reason why I'm saying all this is young Chris I would have had a fucking meltdown. Like, I mean, I would have been just screaming at every person in that airport. Like,
Right.
I'm not joking. Like, I would have made every
Would have
person
been
that
a
I talked to.
it's miserable vacation just for that one event.
And like, what? My son was with my wife or with my parents, like, and having a great time. You know, he was taken care of. Like, my wife and I, we were still alive, and we still had a place to stay, and you know, and places, excuse me, to eat food, and you know, we were still together, and I get to look out the window and the amazing flight that, you know, like, I mean, I went from Mexico City to Indianapolis in less than 24 hours. Like, think about that, you know, 100 years ago. I mean, that would have taken
2 months.
2 months. Yeah, I mean, I'm over here bitching about,
No,
you know, like
5 months.
having a free hotel in Houston overnight or whatever. You know what I mean? And my point is exactly what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I was tempted to get really frustrated, but like, I, for the most part, restrained myself, you know, like, I didn't freak out. I mean, there was a couple times where I was just like, oh, geez, you know what I mean? It was almost like comical at that point in time. But to your overall point is, without these kind of conversations, without the reflections, without learning these things and understanding the broader scheme of stuff, it didn't matter. Like, it's okay. Like, so it was one day of misery. If anything, it probably ended up working out in our favor.
Reflected yourself on misery because
Right.
I mean, my experience in having like you say, you know, my earlier years, I would have a cow about being, you know, delay, and I have
Right.
shifted my schedule for this and affected so many different people and things and whatever. Like, it would cascade the whole week, the whole month, the whole year. It's
Right.
like, I would do that kind of fucking calculation for what? It's like, okay, there is a fucking delay, right? So
It is
now
what
I
it
would
is.
say, well,
Um,
read book,
Learn
go,
something.
you know, go explore
Right. Exactly.
the opportunity you have here. So that isn't a self-affected misery, because that's a hey, you know, I want to kind of get an excuse to stay a little bit longer and do other things.
Right.
And so having understanding the more of the right brain functionality as I age and as I learn about, you know, I told you, reprogramming my subconscious. I've learned some of these things just like she does, is to kind of like do more of the creative side of things. I will play, you know, I would, you know, just toss balls more, you know, just toss things with my left hand and catching it and just
Right.
activating
You get
the
mapacha.
bunch of ideas, exactly ideas. When you get that right, and you start looking at the present is not a problem only because you identify as a problem. Your left brain say it's a problem because you did not go according to plan. You missed the train because the flight, whatever. Because of that, it's a misaligning. You identify that's a problem.
Right.
If you start to use your right brain, which is a creative side, but it say, well, this is an actual opportunity
Right.
or a gift. It's actually a gift to you, because if you use the
Relax.
other brain to look at it, it gives you a different feedback, right? And so it's actually a good thing.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, is everything has its pros and cons, because if you take your left brain and you look at it and it doesn't match, it's misaligned, then that's a problem. If you like take your right brain and look at it and you say, hey, this is not aligning. Well, that's what you want. Oh, this is great. I don't want to do the same thing over. I don't want to get home and do the
It
same
was
thing
novel.
over.
It's a fun story. I get to tell
it's
my friend when I come back, you know?
it's a novel thing. So your left brain's going and say, hey, I don't like it. The right brain say, I enjoy this thing. And I think I'm looking for something that is, you know, it breaks the monotonous of
Right.
the data, because your left brain likes cadence, right? Your right brain doesn't. So when you give it cadence, right, your left brain say yay, the right brain say no. But when you disrupt the cadence, right, your left brain say no. So that's the thing, is it's always opposite depending on the perspective you look at, and you can actually change the
Yeah.
way you look at things.
You are doing reflection number 2, which is tomorrow night, which is you own your own power. Your piece is only a thought away. So you're broaching it into tomorrow's conversation.
But the thing is, one thing I want to mention is that because I'm a more of the left brain dominant, telling me that, you know, you are thought away means nothing to me. I can only understand what it means now because I went through this transition. Because, you know, if you go and you tell somebody who is left brain dominant today, you say, hey, you can control your thought. You can just, hey, look at it differently. It means nothing to me, because the thing is,
like, what are you
and
talking about?
I remember back in my early years, people have told me those things before, and I say, what's a bunch of BS, right? A bunch of hogwash. Like,
Talk
how
about
do I
connecting the
do that?
dots. Sure,
I can't do that, right?
Right.
As a left brain person, I cannot do that. I just thought it was a bunch of hogwash until I was able to experience this myself. Then now that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So I said connecting the dots. Like that's why this reflection was called connecting the dots. You're talking about the question that you and I have asked each other and ourselves, like, I don't know how many times in this journey of like, what would we tell our 20-year-old self? Peace is only a thought away. Like, it's okay. Just like, you're running for trains, like, and you're using your left brain here too much. You're really thinking this is important. It's really not. Like this is, this is nothing in the grand
But
scheme of
if you
things.
don't have to connect, it means nothing to
No, it means nothing. Like, I mean, it means literally nothing. I gotta work, like I got shit to do,
he's gonna probably put me, my old self, into a mental hospital
for sure.
institution.
Did you remember when I told you,
like, are you a high, Mister?
Well, it was about a year after Amelia had passed away. One of my best friends, Adam, was in town and staying with me for a couple days, and we were walking around Irvington, which is where I live, and doing whatever we're doing. And I was carrying on and on and on about all these different ideas and thoughts and whatever. This is before we probably even started the YOML podcast. And he turned to me and he's like, "Chris, I'm kind of worried about you." I was like, "What are you worried about?"
You need some help.
No, seriously. He was like, "I think you're like." He was like, kind of just off in La La Land a little bit and talking about random weird shit. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I like it. Why are you worried about me? I've never felt happier. Like, I've never felt more connected to my daughter, to stuff. This is what I care about. This is fun. Like, who gives a shit if I'm not, like, this isn't towards some goal. The only goal is to feel the energy of my daughter, and I'm like, now I'm saying this stuff in retrospect, but I'm like, once again, connecting the dots. I'm going back to that conversation. People in left brain land get really fucking worried when you go into right brain land. They're like, oh my God, he's going nuts.
Hey, what kind of psychedelics are you doing? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly what
people say when they they go into this creative journey, whatever, and then they say, hey, this guy is like on some kind of crack, right? And that's the perspective of the left brain society. When you look at something, if you don't do the norm, which is whatever they expect you to do, then you become this person who are like, you're a little bit off. We probably need to put you into an asylum just because it doesn't align with what I think.
Right. I mean, or society at large thinks, in general.
Society is dominantly left brain.
Oh, it's 100% left brain. It's all about time. It's all about, activities. It's all about goals. It's all about linearity. If you do this, you do this.
But it's also been trained as well, because we've been trained for that since, I don't know, 3 years old, because you're told to go someplace. Because you think about it, what's the difference between school and prison?
I mean, nothing. I mean, honestly, like
that's what I'm saying. Is you go to school,
into a place and you're forced to do something.
You go to some place at a certain time. You can't do anything until you have permission, right? And you do that for 12 years. You are being conditioned.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, beyond 12 years, because some people go for like 30 years. If you go into this kind of a doctorate or whatever, you go for school for 30 years. You're being like conditioned to be this left brain dominant, because you basically suppresses the right brain so much that it has no chance to grow. And it's gone.
The curiosity is gone. Like, I mean, there is no abstract, like there is no just fun.
But the thing is, you mentioned that she can feel the energy of the person in there that comes through the room. That is a function of the right brain. But we suppress it so much that we don't sense the signal anymore. The other side, your logical side, for that to start to show, you can sense these energies from people, from animals, even the surrounding energy, where you feel like, hey, this is a positive energy or negative energy. For example, you go to the beach or you go to the forest. How do you feel?
Great.
You feel different, right?
Yeah, I feel connected.
Positive
energy. You feel energy.
Negative energy. You go to the city, like buzzing with a bunch of things. How do you feel?
Sometimes,
even in the condition where you suppress the right brain so much, even in that condition, the signal of that is so strong that you feel it.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're able to dial down the logic brain for a little bit. Your right brain is going to start to pick up subtle energy. Like, you can subtly detect whether a person is happy, sad. You don't need to look at them. You can just be like, hey, let's say you put a curtain over
animals. I mean, you can see animals and detect how they feel. You can see trees. You can see plants. You could see.
But then the thing is, when I say that in a podcast, in whatever, people can look at me and say, hey, that guy's cuckoo. He's talking about this supernatural, the spiritual world kind of energy, blah blah blah. Like they gonna put me in the silence just because I don't say things that is aligning with the left brain agenda,
Yeah,
right?
I told you I'm in this room full of a bunch of, very highly paid, successful, well-trained left-brained people, right? At one of the most prestigious places you can work in the world. And I'm talking about, I think the trees can talk to each other and shit like that. And if I can tell you the looks that I get in that room where people are like,
Do I need to lock you up?
what the fuck is this guy talking about? And you're like, what do you mean? What the fuck am I talking about? I mean, this makes sense to me. I can feel it. Same story, different twist. Saturday night when we get stranded in Houston, it's 1:30 by the time that or 1 o'clock, something like that, by the time that we get to the hotel. And when we pull in, there's a line now of people at that hotel because they sent a bunch of the people from the airline and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, we can't even just fucking walk into the hotel and check in. I'm like, oh, now I got to wait in this line. And the second person that's waiting in line is this dad with his son in a wheelchair that has, I don't know what disease the kid has, or cerebral palsy or something. This poor kid is like, his arms are like this, his feet are like that as well, like all crooked and stuff, and he's just shaking violently. And like, talk about energy, right? Like, I almost started crying. I was like, what is this kid going through to make it through each moment of every single day? And it made me think of like Amelia, and it made me think of that parent's love, and he's sitting there calm, like I can be fucking calm, like, and I'm like, I'm not even joking. This is stuck in my fucking head of that kid. I can't get him out of my mind for whatever reason of, just feeling compassion for him and feeling also love for him and feeling like, I don't know, like I want to help him, or how is he making it through this world the way that he's making it through this world. And like, I don't know, man, it was one of those moments where, like, once again, if I was younger, I just would have walked in, I would have been like, oh my fucking God, there's a fucking line. I just would have been so mad. Don't get me wrong, I still have a little bit of that in me. But at the same time, I couldn't stop talking to my wife about that for the next day and a half. I'm still talking about it to you right now. I can't get it out of my head of what that kid must endure and go through every single day, and what that parent must go through every single day, and what they go through every day. And they just did the same thing that I was going through, and it's like, that brings me back to Amelia and watching what she endured. Like, and then, oh, wow, talk about bringing it full circle. When I was in Mexico City, I didn't check social media that much at all, but I got this email from LinkedIn from a message I got from one of my former colleagues that I used to work with at Salesforce. I'm going to not use his name just because I don't think that it's appropriate, but he told me his daughter just passed away after 40 days. Amelia was 39 days old. His daughter was 40 days old. And he was like, I remembered your journey. And he was like, I'd like to talk about it. Like, did you have some talk? And I was like, yeah, of course. As soon as I get back in the country, let's talk, so we talked earlier today, and it's like one of those things where it's like, there's just so, and one of the things that we talked about was like, people don't understand the reality of the world that you're living in right now. Like, you understand what strength and courage and endurance and just the beauty of humanity looks like, what you went through. And like, I understand that. I can see that with my daughter and what I feel with her every single day. And like, people, when he was asking me about what it's going to be like to go back to work, and I was like, you live in a different reality than what you lived in before, you met your daughter. And like, everything that you're going to experience around these people, they're not going to understand. They're going to think it's really a big deal when their comp plans are all fucked up and their territory operations are all jacked up, and the customer is bitching about XYZ, or, we all have to close, for Q2 or something like that, a certain quota. And what's important now. That that's not important. It used to be important to you. It doesn't fucking matter. It never mattered. It was never important. The things that are important, you have a better understanding of now. It all matters. I don't know. It's about striking that balance, because you can't walk through life every single day. We still have to interact with each other, right? And we still have to function. So we still have to have that's why it's balance, right? Like, I mean, it's why it always goes back to balance. But like, right. I can't forget these connected ideas anymore, and it makes me want to go explore them further, because like the shit that doesn't matter to me of quotas and Q2 and how do we close the, how is Wall Street going to react to our earnings? Who gives a fuck? Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? No one is the answer, right?
Yeah, it all comes down to perspective, because you're looking at the things that you think is a big deal, right? In the grand scheme of things that you went through, it means nothing. Just like you talking about the hard thing about hard thing. But say, hey, I have to let people go. Say, well, it's not like they can get another job somewhere else. I mean, but if I lose my daughter, I lose my daughter. That's big difference between the hard thing. You think what you going through is hard thing means nothing to me. I mean, it's like maybe a scratch, barely a scratch in the way I see it, just like In the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when we're talking about the paradigm shift, remember the man and a bunch of kids, rowdy kids going to the
Mhm.
subway,
Yeah, yeah.
and kids are getting rowdy, and the dad didn't do anything, but the bystander were like getting furious, like, why aren't you controlling your kids? So to that bystander, that is a big thing. It's for somebody to control their kids.
Right.
But for that man, his biggest thing was his wife dying of cancer in hospital that they just got the kid to go visit, right?
Right.
So he has no room to control the kid. Let the kid, have fun for one day that, that they see get to see their mom. Because I don't know how much more opportunity do the kids get to see their mom. So that's perspective. There's a huge difference between what
Massive.
people see. It's massive. So talking about, that people gonna see, you doing the folders versus you losing your daughter. That's two big, huge, gigantic difference. It's a
It's
huge gap.
it's
It's
not
not even close in the vicinity.
right. And you can't, and I don't blame anybody for not understanding that. But at the same time, to your point earlier, anybody can do this stuff. And honestly, it's funny you started talking about psychedelics because I just finished that book about Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind, and it's all about psychedelics. And I'm actually going to be writing this reflection tomorrow morning of like, you don't need drugs. Like psychedelics are great and everything because it shocks your reality and it breaks the pattern and it opens you up instantaneously to that right brain, abstract, like shutting down your left brain and opening up the right brain kind of stuff, right?
Right, and that's exactly what psychedelic does. I think
right.
the thing to me, I don't think psychedelics as much as like improve your right brain's activity as much as it suppresses the left brain's activity,
Yeah.
meaning all of the
Oh yeah, yeah.
function
No,
that
you're
you
no, you're
have.
exactly right. Yeah.
When you suppress it, it has more opportunity for the other side to start to fire more
To be.
neurons,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Exactly.
allow more room for it to do things. So that's why
Exactly.
your creativity spikes, just because then when you're on psychedelic, you're in a room and you're like passed out and you're gonna have days because you're not moving because you can't move because your left brain is shutting down the right side, the whole controlling
Right.
of the body, the movement, the thinking, right? It
Time
suppresses
doesn't. You're just floating.
exactly
You're seeing colors. People are
because
prompting you
no
with questions to
no
think
one is
about stuff,
your
and your
your your your
subconscious is
brain
pulling
cell
shit.
isn't
Right.
tracking it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to me, that's the biggest factors in allowing your left brains to grow, to expand, and to fire the neurons. That's why your creativity goes up. Because I agree with you in saying like you don't need psychedelics because if you can start to allow yourself to activate more of your right brains, right, your creativity will actually spikes. And then the more you do it, the more your left brain activity will continue to fire,
Right.
even when you're not in the psychedelic state. And
Yeah.
so eventually you can actually move
To a more
results.
balanced. Nobody wants to be in a shroom induced psychedelic stupor 24/7, right? Like
No.
you can't, like that's called psychosis. Like I mean that is I'm serious. Like I mean
Right,
like
right,
I'm
right.
not joking. That is literally what you would call people in a mental hospital or something like that are psychotic, right? Like it would be people that are just floating in the ether
Because they
all
go
day
like this
long,
every day.
I mean they're like but this is why balance is so important, right? Like this is why like left brain linearity and tasks and the dopamine hit you get is important, but also right brain creativity, imagination, and the chemicals that activates is also important. But it's important to have them both in moderation to be able to be a truly happy functioning human being, in my
Right.
personal opinion. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is I don't need to take drugs to shoot me all the way to this side of the spectrum to go, oh shit, this spectrum exists. I had that happen. The atomic bomb that hit my life, right? Like
Right.
I saw this stuff. I knew, trust me, I can't forget it. And that's one of the other things that Michael Pollan talked about in that book, How to Change Your Mind. Psychedelic experiences are so powerful. You don't forget them. Even though it may not change exactly what you do every single day, you won't forget what you saw because you're not like in some drugs like alcohol where you black out. You're still very cognitively with it. I came back so excited to tell you about Mapache. It was a creative idea that just came to me, but I'm not going to forget that feeling, right? I'm not going to go like, like you don't forget it even when you get into this creative state or whatever, when you get into this abstract thinking state, right? That's what psychedelics, they don't go away, even though they don't necessarily change viscerally, like next moment when you wake up, what your activities are going to be. It takes you one step a little closer. And I think why personally psychedelics are probably so powerful to the human experience because especially in modern times, we're so left brain dominant that like it just shoots you in the other direction. And you're like, fuck, like there is more, like, and you're like, damn.
It's because thing is the moment that you tell me that you can sense somebody's energies, my left brain dominant person in my 20 will actually call the police and put you in a mental institution, right? Because you,
Right.
I don't even consider that aspect because to me that is just hogwash.
Right.
And so that's the thing is when you get catapult over to the other side, you say, "Wow, okay, maybe what I thought isn't all that is. There's more that I don't know." If I've seen that side, and then you tell me, "Hey, maybe you can sense energies," right? A person can sense energy without like everybody can sense energy. I'm not talking about these spiritual medium or whatever person.
Right.
I'm not talking.
Yeah.
I say everybody, right?
Right.
Right. When I say that, and because you have experienced the psychedelic phases, right? You would not throw what I say away without maybe, hey, he could be right.
Sure.
Because once you have seen the other side, what I would say isn't far-fetched. But if you have never, what I like to say to you, you're gonna think that I am this cuckoo guy that is on some kind of crack that needs to be put into some kind of mental asylum, keep him away from society, so to keep society safe from him.
And you're 100% right. And like in that state, that pure kind of right-sided brain thinking state of mind, it's funny because there's no words to describe it because words are so left brain dominant. So you come back and you're like, it's all love, man. And they're like, what are you fucking
because
talking about? You're like, no, you
the
don't
left
understand.
brain.
Well,
So there's no language, there's no word
exactly
that was
like,
written for that experience because the left brain never experienced it before.
Like when I've tried to explain this to you about Amelia and the last 5-6 hours of her life, I'll never be able to describe that in words. I don't know how.
There isn't word for that because the words is only because somebody experienced it and wrote it down, and the person who wrote it down, or more likely than not, is left brain dominant person.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the thing is, I can try to condense that feeling with Amelia, right? And watching my daughter and my wife sustain each other, holding each other's, I can't describe like what that feels like to be in that room with all the love of the doctors and the nurses and your family and your like whatever, everything, that even though my daughter was dying, like there was just so much like love in that room and compassion and kindness and hope. And I don't even know how to. I can say every word that I can try to say to you, but you're like, I don't understand that, and that's the point, is right. Like you can't understand, like
because you have to be there to feel the energy. It's not the same. I'm not getting the full impact of the exposure. The exposure not only in the sight, but also in the sound and all the senses, but also the energies. Because right? When your daughter is enduring. When she fights, right? You sense it. That's the energy I'm talking about. When she's giving up. Okay, that. Yeah. So it's like the thing is, Amelia could not tell you in English, but because that's the energy she's giving up. And that's the thing is, even if you can tell me about, I do not sense that energy because I wasn't there.
And you've maybe never experienced anything like that, where like if you had, you would like this person I was telling you about, my former coworker. He had a very similar last couple hours with his daughter. He was trying to describe it to me, and I said, yes, I know. Like, and I don't mean like I know, like I'm like, I know, like I get it, like it is love, man. You know what I mean? Like it'd be like one person tripping out, talking to another person tripping out, being like, yeah, it was love. You know what I mean? And people are like,
right.
The fuck are these people talking about? You're like, no, I understand. You don't need to tell me. I get it, because there's nothing to describe it.
There's no words to match the emotions and the feelings that comes with it.
And same thing with any kind of a situation where you're in that connected space. Like there's no words to describe it. That's why it's so hard for people that have like a psychedelic trip. I've never done shrooms or anything like that before, but like from everything that I've read and learned and, Entangled Life, and talk about more connecting the dots, like everything that I've learned and read about, I'm like, I've experienced that, just not with drugs. Right. Like, and I know how to try to experience that every single day. I don't need to microdose, myself, every single day, like on some foreign object in my body. It's I just know how to tap into that now, and to feel that energy. And that's why that is what living for two is for me, is like feeling that energy of my daughter every single day, doing stuff that I love to do, and honoring what she taught me how to do and how to live, right? And these are things that if I tried to explain to somebody else, like I've spent 2 books in 3 years talking to you about it, and words will never be able to describe what I'm saying to you, no matter what. It's really just feeling my daughter's energy and feeling that every day, and feeling like she's still not just with me, she's with me. It sounds like I'm fucking crazy.
I mean, to the audience that don't go through the journey and don't understand
Right.
what you're saying, is you are a cuckoo guy, right? Because then
Right.
you say, well, my daughter's with me. No, you're not. The thing is, that's a left brain talking.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because
I mean, it's
but
100%.
because you have never sensed that, you have never seen the other side. Whatever you just said to me would sound so like far out to other people, because it's like I mean, this guy is nuts. This guy is crazy. This guy is on something, right?
No, this guy had a traumatic experience, and and everything, his
And
reality.
now he's delusional.
You're right.
But the thing is, for me, is I don't think that way, because I have seen some of it. I don't seen the most, like the big part of it, but I've seen some of it. So for me, whatever you say isn't, but only because of all the dots that I've been connecting, that I've seen. Like, that's what I told you. I really truly can see that a person can sense another person's energy without
Or an
even
animal,
looking at it.
or
Or
a
an
baby.
animal.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, my dog is almost dying. Like she's 16 years old, and she's going through some stuff. But like every day when I see her, I can feel her energy, and she's like, I'm okay. My wife is like freaking out every day, and I'm like, look, I'm listening to her. She's not telling me that she's unhappy, that she's not living a life of a fulfilling purpose, or something like that. She is, like, and that's okay. Like, when she's not, then she'll let us know, and then we'll figure it out from there, But like, I don't know, I could be easily just freaking out about losing my dog, and I'm not. Like, she's lived a really happy life. She's been around us. She's provided a lot of joy in this world. She's a great dog, and I'm gonna miss her, being with us when she's not with us. But I'll always remember her energy forever, and I'll remember how she is right now. I don't know. I mean, it's not crazy, but it is. If I'm saying
depends on what kind of brain you use to look at it.
You can. It's always like tomorrow we'll talk about it. It's a thought away, right? It's not like, I mean, I could choose to be freaking out about my dog. Oh my God, how many more days does she have left? We got to do XYZ. She can't run. She can't go fetch. She doesn't like to be in cars. She doesn't like to be out of her space. Like, I mean, there's nothing I can do other than just pet her every day and say, like, how are you feeling? Like, tell me what's up, like, let her just be, I mean, I know if I was 95 years old and people were like, well, we got to take you here, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to,
yeah, you must experience this roller coaster ride. Like, I don't think that's not what you want.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Just come say hi to me.
Yeah,
I want you to just come say hi to me, right?
Right.
That's all I want. Don't take me anywhere.
Exactly. I mean, like, I felt, actually, if anything, talk about feeling her energy, like, because we just left her with my parents for the past week. I was actually worried for the first time ever that I was like, I don't know if she's going to be okay with this. I actually felt worse about leaving my dog with my parents for the first time ever, because she loves going over to my parents' house. But I was like, she's not in her space. She's not in her area. She's not in her zone, her place where she can feel good energy, right? And I was like, I felt awful, honestly, removing her from her space, for the past week. That was probably the most terrifying thing of that whole entire trip, was like,
why do you think that is?
Because I want her to feel at peace,
Why
then?
Why didn't you have concern like a week before, 2 weeks before, a month before?
I can feel her energy. Like, I could be around her.
Exactly. My point is, there is a reason why you start to do that now. Is there is a certain energy that you can sense. You sense it. So it's not like, oh, I somehow sense it. No, because somebody gives energy that connects. Scientifically, there is some kind of connections, right? It's invisible, but there is connection. Just like I'm talking about Wi-Fi. Does Wi-Fi exist? Do you see it?
No. I guess you see the router. I don't know.
Does it exist?
No, you're exactly.
Can you receive it? So you're talking about, hey, the dog can't send me signals and energy. right? That's what I'm saying is there's certain thing you believe in, but certain thing it's cuckoos to you. To me, this is the left brain is so much in a tunnel that you can't see anything else, even though it's like right in front of you. And that's the thing. That's a bad side of having this left brain dominant, because you just are blind to anything that's out there until somebody then comes to you and say, hey, I have found Wi-Fi, I have found microwave, I have found radio frequency, I have found X-ray, I have found UV. What the fuck is UV?
Well, it's light. It's higher. It's ultralight.
No one can see it, because back then, before the guy who said UV, right? The guy who said X-rays and radio. These guys were the cuckoos, because to society, this guy is seeing something that isn't visible.
Microbiology, like bacteria and
exactly something.
No, I mean for sure. I mean, there's been a million books I've read about bacteria and stuff like that. Anyway, no, I think you're spot on. I think I feel good to leave it there for the night. I don't know about you. Have I convinced you to want to read this book a little bit, maybe potentially?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think it is very interesting that she's able to reconnect some of her, I guess, part of the brain based on what I've seen so far. But I think it aligns with what I've been hypothesizing as far as how our brain works in my own way.
Right. And I think that the coolest part about this book, again, I wrote in this reflection, I was like, it's not cool. But then I'm like, but it is cool. Like, she would say it's cool. Like, the coolest part of this book is her being able to document like her experience of losing her ability to connect, to tether to linear reality, and eventually be able to get back language to be able to describe what she was feeling with not language. Like, that's the most interesting thing about this whole entire book, because she didn't have language. She had feelings, she had consciousness, she knew what was going on, but she didn't have language to describe it. She was able to work really hard and come back into somewhat of a more balanced state where she could use language again to be able to write this book, which is what I find fascinating, because it's a really, really interesting, fascinating book.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a unique perspective that no one can ever have, because having the ability, the combination of having your speech taken away from you and experience all the things, but can't find the word. And then once you regain some of these things, it's more succinct onto how you pick the right words to describe the feelings and the imagery that goes into your head. And it's also a unique perspective from neuroscientists as well, a brain scientist, right?
I mean, this is such a unique book. I mean, this is such a unique book.
I think it's one of a kind as far as what the combinations of experiences and perspective that she can offer.
Agreed. This is why I wrote a 3-part reflection on this book. I remember when I finished this book, actually, I was down in Florida in July of last year. I was at my friend Adam's place down there. And I remember I finished this on a run one day, and I came back in. I was like, whoa, Adam. I was like, this book is fucking crazy. I was trying to explain it to him, and he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, she could, I'm describing all this stuff to him, but like, once again, crazy talk, right? The same person when he was visiting me 2 years before that was like, I'm getting a little worried about you, man. And now he's not worried about me at all. Now he's like, oh,
that's just Chris.
This is just Chris. Like, gets really excited about books about my stroke of insight. You're like, what the fuck is wrong? The Chris that he knew our entire life couldn't be further from this person, right? I've always felt, I used to go to a psychic once every 6 months or so for a long time before Amelia ever came along. And I would come back and talk about this stuff with my friends and my wife, and they're like, you're fucking nuts, man. And I'm like, no, it's fun. Why not explore these things? Why not just believe in something that doesn't make any sense? I know that it doesn't make sense, but who cares? It doesn't have to make sense. It's just fun. It's just exploring. This isn't like I went from being totally like a robot, left brain thinker or whatever, spectrum that was closer to like a more balanced state, maybe even a little bit further than most other people in that kind of regard. But like, this whole journey has just sent me like probably a little bit more tilted on the other side of the balance equation. I would say like toward more right brained than I don't give a fuck about outcomes anymore. And I mean I'm not even joking. The only outcomes I usually ever care about is tennis. Like and I'm trying really hard to break that. Like, these days I don't even care. I don't even look at our CRM. This is my job. Like, this is almost comical. My job is to fucking make sure that my team is performing. I don't even know what my team is doing. I have no idea. I literally tell them every single day. I don't even look at our CRM. I haven't. I don't fucking care. Like, so I tell them every day whenever I have to go report our numbers, I'm like, just tell me what you guys did. You know, integrity is one of our core values of our team. So it's like, don't lie to me, you know, because if you do and it comes back and you ended up lying, I was like that's gonna be a problem, right? But just tell me what you did, you know, like, because I don't care. Like, I really don't. Like, I mean, if they did good or they did bad, like, I don't care. I mean, I really don't. Like, I mean, I just want to make sure that they're living their values and learning and growing and feeling connected to each other. And like, you know, like those are the things that I care about. Those are the things that I check in. And no, I don't monitor it, but I feel the energy, right? That's why we ask, how's your balance every time when we talk? And that energy comes out with people. That's why whenever I'm asking them questions about stuff, I'm literally trying to figure out, like, when was the last time you were in a flow state? How are you liking your job? How's your balance? Like, if you say you're an 8, I'm like, you're feeling good. Like, you're feeling like we're all marching with some momentum going forward. If you tell me you're a 4, I'm like, well, your energy probably isn't very good right now, you know? Like, you're sick, you're tired, you're run down, you don't like your job, you know, you're fighting every day to try to, like, you know, to try to run uphill, you know, like, and like, you know, that energy is not a good energy. And, you know, and if that stays that way, I'll just fire you. Like, cause I'll be like, look, this is best for both of us, you know, like, you know what I mean? So that's my outcome, right? The top performer on my team, I've tried to fire 30 times, only because their energy is awful, not because of her performance, not because of her ability to do a job or not do a job. If I asked her on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your balance every single day? I'm pretty confident I know what that answer is.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's call this one a night because it's getting pretty late. But we had a lot to catch up on, you know, after a week of not being around. So excited to be back. It was fun. Thanks for humoring me. That was a fun conversation. Felt good. I felt purged. You feel purged?
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. So the question we can leave with everybody is, when was the last time you spent some time and appreciation of how incredible our minds truly are and connecting into that broader abstract side of your imagination? And just ask some questions, you know. Any final thoughts, Drew?
So this comes to the saying of the day is, you know, the phrase "the open mind." It has a new meaning.
I agree.
Because people say, hey, you know, have an open mind. What the fuck does that mean? Right? Now that will give you a sense of the reference, what we mean when we say have an open mind.
And also one of our core values of we don't know shit, like, you know, like humility. Like, this is the abstract side of everything because we don't know anything. Like, I mean, there's so many unanswered questions in this world and an insane, elaborate, you know, connectivities of I contain multitudes and, you know,
right. The point is that there are more that we don't know than that we know.
For sure. 100%. So we can leave it at that. Man, how many books have we referenced on this call? Like 40?
I don't know.
30 different books, maybe. Like, talk about connecting the dots. Like, this book really does help connect a lot of dots. All right. So thanks for joining, and we will see you all tomorrow for part 2.
See ya. Bye.